Today, my guest is Wade Rouse, author of 3 critically acclaimed memoirs, including his latest, the best-selling, At Least in the City, Someone Would Hear Me Scream, Misadventures in Search of the Simple Life Through Harmony, a part of Random House. Now, no, this is not a slasher story. It's the hilarious account of Wade and his partner's move to rural Michigan, from where he will be speaking with me today. Wade, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it is definitely not a slasher title. There's a lot of scary moments for a city boy that goes country.
We're going to talk about scary moments and fun moments and everything else, Wade. And an interesting little aside, too, about your country boy now also has a home in Palm Springs, and I had the pleasure of meeting him at Be Just Fabulous bookstore in Palm Springs. And Stephen, the owner of Be Just Fabulous, is going to be on after Wade. So we've got a lot to talk about. But Wade, let's start out by telling my listeners how you would describe your book.
You know, truly it's kind of... I describe it as Green Acres meets Sex in the City a little bit, but it's about, as you put it so well, the misadventures of my partner and I who, you know, I hit 40 with a rather resounding thud and was in a job that I despised, which I chronicle in my second memoir, Confessions of a Prep School Mommy Handler, and I found these letters that my grandmother had written me, and my grandmother was an Ozarks woman, but a Walden devotee. And she had always asked if I were being a writer and if, you know, I were kind of on the right path to following my dream. And I found these letters, and it really resonated with me. And I'd gone on vacation with my partner, Gary, to the coast of Michigan and just fallen in love with it. And truly on, you know, kind of an unmedicated, insane whim, I quit my job and left the city and my friends, and everybody told us we were crazy, but set out on this path to try to reinvent our lives as sort of a modern-day Walden. And, you know, as I write in the book, it's funny as hell because city people lose touch with rural America and how quiet it is, and you know, there's no Starbucks at the end of the block.
Well, that's for sure, and we're going to really get into the details. But
yeah.
And I want to touch a little more on your grandmother, because as a child, you say in the book that you used to sit on the porch with her, who read the Rose Walden Pond out loud to you, and I know by reading your book what effect she had on your life, but I'd like you to tell my listeners how she has affected your life.
Both of my grandmothers had profound impact on my life, and my father's mother in particular, because I grew up spending my summers in the Ozarks at this old log cabin that my grandmother and grandfather built by hand. And on Memorial Day weekend, fittingly enough that we would be talking now, I would head down there and spend my entire summer without a TV, just a staticky radio, just me and my family and inner tubes and fishing poles. But my grandma on Sunday mornings, and she was a very religious woman, would forgo church and would sit out on this barn red glider overlooking a little creek called Sugar Creek, and she would read to me from her 2 favorite books, which were the Bible and Walden. And she used to tell me that she felt the Bible was more for her afterlife, but that Walden was more for her here life.
And she sounds like such an amazing woman and such a philosopher to say some of the things that she did, but to be so involved with Walden Pond was amazing to me.
It's incredible. You know, she was a woman that was born in the early 1900s, and her dream was always to be a fashion designer, but she didn't really have the wherewithal at that time to follow her dream, and so she mended and was a seamstress out of her church's basement. And I think that's really why the book resonated and why she pushed me so hard to follow my dream. And, you know, better late than never, I say, but it really did. I mean, And I just think we are all so choked with fear most of the time, and we don't pursue our passions. And really, that's a lot of what the book is about and what she taught me. And I feel it's a long overdue thank you to her in many respects.
Well, that's terrific. I want to know where you got your sense of humor from. I mean, your book is filled with self-deprecating humor, and did that serve you growing up, or was that something that developed later in life?
Oh God, Jacqueline, it was truly was my defense mechanism growing up. I grew up, as I said, in the Ozarks, in this tiny little rural town that didn't even have a stoplight.
Right.
And truly, I think my sense of humor was was my shield, the only thing that helped me survive, this tiny town and, how I was viewed, because everybody called me different.
Yes.
Not gay, but different.
Different. Well, that was kind.
I think humor's the greatest uniter, and how I really worked it to kind of make people like me and understand me. So it was both a defense mechanism, but also a uniting factor. So it developed really early on, and my grandmother had both of them had great sense of humor. My mother had a great sense of humor, and she led me to Irma Bombeck early on, and she became one of my great influences.
Well, and I think that would be a good time to mention, too, that you just came back from the Irma Bombeck, what was it called?
It's the Irma Bombeck Humor Writers Conference in Dayton, Ohio, and it's held every 2 years. It's the largest humor writers group in America, and it was kind of a wonderful honor. They asked me to teach and lecture there this year.
Oh, that must have been a thrill for you.
Oh, it was incredible. And actually, CBS, the Sunday Morning Daily Show, just was there, and they shot a wonderful piece that ran on Mother's Day about Irma Bombeck and her profound impact on mothers.
Oh, that's great. Well, I wish I had seen that. You had also mentioned growing up in the Ozarks, and I'd like my audience to know that your first memoir was called America's Boy, and that chronicled your life growing up gay in the Ozarks. And thanks to the unconditional love from an unconditional family, it was named by Borders as a best book, literary memoir of 2006. So I think that says a lot for what you had to say in that. I haven't had the pleasure of reading it yet, but certainly I'm going to do it. And for those of you that are just tuning in, I am talking to writer Wade Rouse about his latest best-selling memoir, At Least in the City. Someone would hear me scream, Misadventures in Search of the Simple Life. And the paperback version of that book is being released on June 1st. So you can get it in hardcover and you can get it in paperback. But it is a fun book. Now, I want to get to, Wade, you're probably one of the funniest authors that I have had the pleasure of seeing in person, and the humor comes out in your book. It's, pardon me, it's really hysterical. There are many funny incidents in the book, but tell us what you believe to be the funniest thing that happened to you in this big beginning that you had in the woods in Michigan.
Oh my gosh, it's endless. When you put me and my partner in the woods, it's
oh well, it is. But give us and of course, I thought the raccoon story was hilarious, and I don't know if you want to talk about that one or not.
It does. The memoir actually starts out with me being attacked by a raccoon, and all true stories. But I walked a forgotten bag of trash up, it's about a half-mile gravel driveway. And stuff I used to do in the city without, blinking twice, and I opened the trash can and pushed the bag down into it, and a raccoon jumped out and perched on my head. And I thought I was going to be maimed and, twirled like a drunken ballerina to get it off. It was not what I expected to be greeted when we moved to the woods. But
and there you were with a real raccoon cap. That must have been hysterical.
We had neighbors in the city, but didn't really know them because they kept to themselves and came and went so frequently. But, in the country, people really look after you. And one of my favorite pieces of the book were just kind of getting to know the neighbors. And one of our closest neighbors brought us homemade turkey soup. And I don't really like strangers' food. I don't really eat it. It's one of my many neurotic
one of your strange things.
And as they were leaving, they said, we've been keeping an eye out on your house. And I said, oh, thank you. That's really nice. It's great to have neighbors like that. And they said, oh, it's no problem. We have night vision goggles.
I remember that.
So those are the things you run into in the country that you don't really run into in the city.
No, I would hope not. That is a little strange. Well, and then you're talking about the turkeys. You had wild turkeys in your backyard also.
We do. We have wild. It's
everything wild.
Beautiful. But we have wild turkeys. Our cottages, we've actually named it Turkey Run, and they come and go and wander through our woods, and they're loud, and they sound in groups almost like thunder. And when there are thunderstorms or even thunder snow, as we have in Michigan, they will answer back and forth with the thunder, and it's really amazing. But that's one of the reasons that I moved, was reconnecting myself to my environment, something I'd kind of lost in the city. And I have to say, one of the things I love most, not only about Michigan but Palm Springs, there is this is my Oprah moment, but there are places that I think call to people and center you, and the lake does that in Michigan, but the mountains do that in Palm Springs. And
that's true.
I love both places.
But Palm Springs is certainly a little more, would we say, civilized, as opposed to where you started out, and you make it sound so easy, like you've just settled in. Well, you read this book, and this is where you get the truth from Wade. He's really honest about the stuff that they went through, and it's just so great, the fact that you were able to tell this story in the way that you did. But I'm certainly happy to hear that you feel that you are settled into it right now.
I do, and I love the juxtaposition of being here in Michigan and then being able to go to Palm Springs and, walk to coffee or walk to Starbucks and have so many great restaurants.
Yeah, that's right, and that's really amazing. Roughing it, walking to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee, right?
It's nice. It's a blessing, and I say that every day when we do that. I'm like, this is nice. This is good.
Well, some of the things that I read in the book, I mean, there are many things in the book that would have scared me half to death, starting with the raccoons, of course, but again, there's probably a few stories that you can't tell in its entirety because there's a little naughtiness to them, and your encounter with a couple of woodsmen. But what was the scariest among the many things that would have scared me to death? What was your scariest part? Just being there in the dark, in the middle of nothing?
For me, I think it was the fact, as I write in the book, in the city, for instance, where we lived, there was always light. There were street lights and noise and airplanes going by and car horns and alarms going off and music from restaurants and bars and people walking by. And when you move to a very remote area, you're ensconced in silence, which in its own way becomes incredibly deafening.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to just let yourself go and appreciate that and not kind of give in to the madness. And for me, it was what I dreamed of, being in a, beautiful knotty pine cottage and being able to write, but then you're there and you're kind of lost. You have to reclaim yourself, and that's much of what the book is about. But that was really hard, and kind of giving up just the stuff that we were accustomed to, shopping at 30 or 40 stores a week, being able to run in conveniently, and all that kind of went away.
I think what would be fun now is to talk about some of the major problems that you encountered settling in an area so different from your usual lifestyle, certainly here in Palm Springs and other places that you've lived. So why don't you tell us a couple of situations that were, quote, interesting, to say the least, unquote?
And there are many. Two that come to mind are, one, not being familiar with what's termed lake effect snow, which, of course, Palm Springs knows nothing about.
Right.
But living along the coast of Lake Michigan, it's like being on the wrong end of the snowblower. And the first winter we were here, we had, I'm going to guess, about 180 inches of snow.
Oh, wow.
Which was beyond maddening. I didn't understand, especially growing up in Missouri, we did not get that much snow. or if it would snow, it would used to snow and go, as we'd say, 3 inches, and it'd be done. But here in the winter, it snows nearly every day, and it's volumes of snow. As I said, the skies vomit snow. And it's just, my partner Gary loves it. He thinks it's magical and beautiful, and I nearly went insane, just mostly because we had to sell our Roth IRA to keep our driveway shoveled. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But that was a really hard adjustment, just the weather affecting your life so greatly.
Well, and the clothes that you needed to even get out in that snow.
Oh, it's insane. And, I'm a guy that loves, one of the reasons I love Palm Springs is because I can wear cute slides,
right,
24/7. And footwear is vitally important to me. And in Michigan, you have to have a pair of waders, which are those 3-foot-high rubber, camouflagey looking rubber boots to get around in, and it's not a pretty look. I can't really pull it off. I kind of look like a flamboyant Marine.
Well, your description of that was incredible, and that was a gift from Gary's mother, as I recall.
It was her. She's a great gift buyer. I always said she could get Hitler the greatest mustache trimmer, but it was. I think she even had to search to get me to the right gift, but she found it.
Yeah. Well, I think the one quote that we can say that you say in that is that waders are condoms for the feet. I think that's quite a description.
They're impenetrable.
Well, that must have been fun, that part of it. But you also had another story that you were going to tell, too. You went shopping, and where were you, in a hardware store or something, and you encountered a couple of local guys?
Yeah, in a local country store, and we, the book is kind of centered around 10 life lessons that are rooted in Walden, but also in my and my partner's effort to overcome our rural childhoods, things that we wanted to accomplish. And one of those was to forgo the latest fashion and entertainment, much like Thoreau did. He didn't believe in a lot of cultural influences in your life. And so we decided to begin shopping at, kind of non-name brands at a country store, and we ran into 2 rural hunters who we noticed were circling us like sharks. And we always end up saying very inappropriate things to one another, but they were dressed head to toe in full-on Apocalypse Now camouflage.
Oh, boy.
And my partner, Gary, as we're shopping, turns to me and says, "I can't see them. They're camouflaged." At which point I double over our shopping cart and fart, which sets these boys off. And they semi-circle and threaten us, but, it's another big part of the book is, my partner and I, what we endured in rural America, we weren't going to stand for that anymore. So these guys asked us if we were lost, and my partner Gary looked at them and said rather primly, "No, we're rather enjoying our shopping experience," and offered to give them a coupon from his red Velcro Hannah Hansen coupon holder. And they were startled. I don't think they had ever been threatened by 2 gay men, so they just kind of stalked away. But it's those stories, I think, make up the heart of the book.
Well, absolutely. And you had mentioned, too, that, and I want to talk about this one next, that like Thoreau in Walden's Pond, you did decide to live without stores, television, and so forth.
Cable,
everything, but you finally broke, and you went on a major shopping spree, which you kept hidden from Gary. And while you had a blast, you didn't know what to do with all the loot that you were accumulating. That, too, is one of the funniest things that I read in trying to hide that from Gary. So describe some of the stuff that you bought and what you did with it.
Oh, my God. I went nuts after not shopping, trying not to shop for so long. I went to, I drove when he was away at work. I sneaked out and went to an outlet mall and basically, just spent hundreds of dollars buying jeans and cute shirts and T-shirts and workout stuff, anything you can imagine, cologne. And I'm driving home trying to beat Gary coming home. I had like 3 coffees and had to, pee very badly. And I get home and hear him coming in, and I have absolutely no idea what to do with the loot that I bought. So I'm manically that's the whole point. That's why it's such an addiction, is you buy the stuff, and I did, and you think, how the hell am I ever going to wear this anywhere?
Yeah, because you can't wear it in front of him, right?
So, but that's all the secrets came out, and he's he was actually very pleased to jump back on board the shopping train with me. That and the cable train, which we rationalized because we said we needed to keep updated on the weather, and we just watched the Weather Channel.
Right.
And, we got a dish, and I said we watched, I think, about 118 episodes of Saved by the Bell as soon as we got it.
Well, I don't know how you managed to go shopping again after that, because I don't know how, I mean, you were describing the number of shoes that you bought and the number of shirts, and you must have had enough stuff to last you for a lifetime. So
I had a trunk. It's never enough to last you for a lifetime. But that's kind of this, and, I laugh about it, but that's, that is another good piece and heart of the book is, what we're addicted to, especially in the city, and why it's necessary. And when you remove yourself, you really begin to focus on those things that really matter.
Yeah.
I need that stuff still, but it doesn't define me as much.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, just again for our listeners that are just tuning in, we're talking to writer Wade Rouse about his latest best-selling memoir, At Least in the City Someone Would Hear Me Scream, Misadventures in Search of the Simple Life, which is a funny book from Harmony, which is a part of Random House, and the paperback is going to be out on June 2nd. It's a delightful story. If you're heading home, you can catch the show on our web, kptr1450.com, and can continue listening to what Gary has to say. What Wade has to say. Now, Gary had a lot to say about what he wanted to do. And the one thing that he was determined that he was going to do was to create a magnificent garden in the wild. Which is a wonderful description of what he was trying to do, what he managed to do. But how did that finally, talk about the background, and then how did that finally work out? Do you now have a garden in the wild?
Oh my God, your timing is perfect because it's gardening season right now in Michigan. Yes, we do. One of Thoreau's biggest things that he did was he grew and harvested 7 acres of beans, and actually made a nice profit off of them, and also lived off of what he produced. And so we were bound and determined to do the same thing, and we had by far the worst garden that you can ever imagine. We spent, I can't even tell you how much money.
A fortune.
And grew, I'm guessing maybe 2 green peppers that were as big as boogers, and an onion as big as a cubic zirconia. Nothing produced, and all of our neighbors came over, and all the local townspeople, and they said, it was too much in the shade, because we put it back on the edge of our woods because we think gardens look unsightly, so it wasn't cute enough to be out in a major part of the yard, and the soil was too sandy, and we didn't amend it enough. But we failed miserably, but we made it look very pretty with a birch gate, and we did some things to really make it look hot. But Gary actually has created a different area in the yard, and we're giving it another shot this year. We planted rhubarb, strawberries, tomato, green peppers, cucumbers, and I think some melons. So we're going to see how that does. We'll touch base here in the couple months. Well,
we need to do that. Talking about touching base, this would be a good time too to mention your website, Wade, for people here that there's a lot of people in town certainly that know you. Why don't you mention that website that we can follow you on?
My website is waderouse.com, WADEROUSE.com, and people can also look at the Random House Speakers Bureau. I'm thrilled to be a speaker.
Yes, that's
bureau,
brand new.
It's rhspeakers.com. So both places have a lot of information too much information about me.
Right. Well, I don't know whether it's too much, but it's fun. You were also talking about lake fishing. Did you ever go out on the frozen lake in the winter and try to fish? I
did. Another devastatingly awful moment, but something I learned a lot from. I was invited out to go ice fishing by a country couple, and slid across in my Kenneth Cole boots, and ended up basically pissing this couple off to no end as we sat in a the little shanties trying to catch a fish.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be there. It was miserably cold. And they kind of called me on it in many respects. And I had to kind of sit and reflect on what I was doing and why I was there and what was the purpose, and not be such a baby, even though I did lose my mood ring.
Yeah, that was hysterical. Well, your mood ring, you were in a bad mood, and so your mood ring...
It was black.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was... I always say, I always believe those mood rings, but then again, it was about 3 below, so I don't really know if it was that or just the ice cold.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good time to talk about what overall conclusion did you reach about your life there, and have you learned to compromise with Thoreau on your current life? And maybe you can just kind of say that rather quickly at this point.
Yeah, I think interestingly, I talk a lot about more of the superficial stuff in the book, like the clothing and the shopping and the cable TV, but really what I learned is it's much deeper than that. It's about, kind of conquering your fear, pursuing your passion, following your life's dream, and doing what I think you're meant to do on this earth, and be allowing yourself to become reconnected with that dream. And I've been pleased that people love the humor, but those deeper messages have also connected with them, especially
absolutely
in our society.
Yes, and I think that's an important point to make. And you're getting a lot of writing done. I want to know, as I mentioned, you live in Palm Springs in season. Can we expect a book about your life here?
Possibly.
Possibly.
I'm what I call a puzzle piece writer, so while I'm working on a project, whenever I wake up and I write about 6 hours a day, I write whatever's on my mind. So in Palm Springs, I tended to write about everything there. And yes, I'm looking at perhaps kind of this mid-century modern madness, and how redecorating a home in that Rat Pack style can become obsessive.
That would be absolutely great. And Stephen is going to be talking about his involvement in Modernism Week. We had, I don't know if you were still here, we had that Modernism Week, which was a big success. But
it's incredible.
Yeah, but I think that would be fantastic to talk about that.
So yes, I think Palm Springs is going to figure in greatly at some point in the near future.
I'm sure. But you've got another current project that you're working on, I believe. What is your latest one now?
Yeah, I have 2 books that will be out in 2011, and the first is my 4th memoir, and it'll be out from Harmony in February, and it's titled It's All Relative, a memoir of 2 families, 3 dogs, 34 holidays, and 50 boxes of wine. And it's all about kind of our holiday dysfunction that we all share, but the evolution of family through the lens of holidays. And I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's going to be a great one. And you've got a wonderful way of looking at things. Like you say, it's humor, but also there's messages there. And I'm so sorry to say that we are out of time, but I'm looking forward to seeing you when you get back to Palm Springs. And we'll stay in touch, and I'll follow you on your website, and just let me know what you're doing and how you're doing. And I hope you'll come back with your next book.
I will, and thanks for having me.